When I was 43, I'm 55 now, but when I was 43, for that year, I moved in and I lived temporarily as a resident in 5 different senior living communities. And I didn't pretend like I wasn't in a wheelchair or anything like that. I went there as a healthy 43-year-old living in these communities. And my goal was, well, first off, I was in the business for 20 years, and I realized it was sort of like working in a restaurant but not eating the meal. How can I be helping, how can I be helping all these people move to these senior communities, but I haven't spent the night in one of them? And so I went about doing that. But I also wanted to sort of put these communities to the test, because a lot of people, they're scary for a lot of people. They're scary because it's age segregated living. It's the only legal age segregated living. So I wanted to see, can a person live in a community like this and enjoy it? Not an older person or a person with disability. And I have to say, they were the best neighborhoods that I ever stayed in. It was, it was a great experience. It's helped me guide other people and their families through these transitions. And it really opened up my mind to how creative we can be in the future to support our elders.
Reston Digs, what's going on? Hey, I've got Steve Gurney from Positive Aging Sourcebook on our vlog today. Steve, welcome so much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, great to be here, Rob.
Hey, so, we were just chatting a little bit before we jumped on, and we were talking about, this community that we love, Reston, and aging in Reston. And I was doing a little bit of background on your, stalking you online. And I was like, okay, wow, this guy started this business in 1990, right? And then he sold it to the Washington Post and he bought it back. I'm like, I'm intrigued, right? I was hooked. So tell us a little bit about your journey, and then also about Positive Aging Sourcebook. How did all this come about?
I love to. And actually, I'll go a little bit further back. I am a 1983 graduate of South Lakes High School. And the interesting thing, when I graduated from South Lakes, I was like, I am never coming back to Reston. I am out of here. I'm going to chart my own course or what have you. And thank goodness I moved back, because I love this community. But just a little bit of how I accidentally stumbled into this career path. When I was in college, my grandfather needed a nursing home, and my family's all from this area. He's in Arlington, and it was a challenging. It was definitely a challenge for my family, and I sort of observed it from the periphery. Well, when I graduated from college, I didn't have the greatest job in the world, and I figured I need something to put on my resume to make me stand out. And I figured, let me put together a little guide to help families like ours. And now I got something on my resume that shows that I'm a self-starter. And much to my surprise, people really liked it. And here I am 32 years later doing the same thing.
That's wild, right? And the ingenuity around that. So, did you decide, like in the beginning when you did it, what was the intent to monetize that? I'm just curious. Or was it?
I just wanted to break even, honestly. So I used my credit cards. I didn't quit my job. I took on a part-time job. I just wanted to get the first issue out. And then, like I said, I didn't think I was doing a second issue. I figured, put this on my resume, maybe I can get a better job. And what I stumbled into was just the most wonderful career and community, and the ability to just help people make very challenging decisions. And I probably should have said, so what was in the first, it was called Guide to Retirement Living back then, and now it's called Positive Aging Sourcebook. But what was in there is basically the same thing that's in it now, is that it's the only complete listing of every single senior living option. And then we also have a lot of articles and resources to help people age in place. And then the other sort of segment is introducing people to all of these professions that are out there to help them through this difficult and challenging, but also what can be a very rewarding life stage.
Yeah, super rewarding. I know that when we've helped people in that transition, that they value the assistance, the help. They need direction. They really, they're looking for experts in the field, and so that's fascinating, right? You were like, hey, I'm just going to put this on my resume. Because did you want to be a journalist? Is that what it was? Or
Oh
you?
no. I mean, I'm one of those guys. I was a lost soul. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think, I and I've applied this through my entire career is that fortunately I keep a wide field of vision. I'm always sort of like, what can I do? Where can I be useful? And, like all entrepreneurs, it starts to become a habit. And so I just feel lucky because I really have had an interesting and rewarding career and the ability to be with a lot of different organizations and families and help them through this process. And one of the things I'm really into looking at this stage of life with creativity and positive energy. And I'll share with you one thing that I did that was really life-changing to me. When I was 43, I'm 55 now, but when I was 43, for that year, I moved in and I lived temporarily as a resident in 5 different senior living communities. And I didn't pretend like I wasn't in a wheelchair or anything like that. I went there as a healthy 43-year-old living in these communities. And my goal was, well, first off, I was in the business for 20 years. And I realized it was sort of like working in a restaurant, but not eating the meal. How can I be helping, how can I be helping all these people move to these senior communities, but I haven't spent the night in one of them. Mm-hmm. And so I went about doing that. But I also wanted to sort of put these communities to the test because a lot of people, they're scary for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. They're scary because it's age segregated living. It's the only legal age segregated living. So I wanted to see, can a person live in a community like this and enjoy it? Not an older person or a person with disability. And I have to say, they were the best neighborhoods that I ever stayed in. It was, it was a great experience. It's helped me guide other people and their families through these transitions. And it really opened up my mind to how creative we can be in the future to support our elders.
It's so interesting because, we started going through this with my wife's mom several years ago, right? It was like, okay, we're going to age. First they owned a big house they had retired on Beaver Lake in Arkansas, big house on the lake, and her father passed away, and now her mom is taking care of this big house in the middle of the woods, right? And we were like, we're concerned about that, right? And then we kind of moved back to St. Louis, where she was from, and then it was in a 55 and older community. And she lived there for some time, and then she started falling, and we were concerned, right? And so there was just all this learning that had to happen. And truthfully, we didn't have a guide. We kind of like making this up as we're going along, right? I was on your website going, where was this? Where was this?
Well, this is good. This is great, Rob. I mean, the story that you mapped out, and I'm just gonna give your viewers and listeners a couple of sort of scenarios, but make it very Reston focused to help them kind of understand if they're in a situation like you and your family was in, some of the solutions. The first thing that I want to let everybody know about is several professions, but one very important. It's called Aging Life Care Managers, okay? Mm-hmm. And you can get a list of them in our guide. But these are amazing professionals for the scenario that you shared, because none of us are experts in this. And also, we're very near and dear to our family. So we've got skeletons in the closet, and we've got all that. So aging life care managers, they can come in, make an objective assessment. And even if the family is paying an aging life care manager, they're focused on what's best for mom and dad. And then they can map out a plan. And in the case of your situation where you're talking about Arkansas and St. Louis, if mom doesn't want to relocate, or it's not the right choice to relocate to be here in Reston, you can have the aging life care manager sort of monitor what's going on, make sure mom's got all the resources that she needs. So the aging life care is very important for everybody to know about. Now, the next thing that I want to address is the big house you were talking about. And so one of the things that we tend to be very emotionally tied to our homes, and our home that we purchased back in 1983 that, served us well while we were raising our family, and we had the babysitting co-op and all the stories from the Reston pioneers back then, like now cleaning those gutters, mowing that lawn might not necessarily be the most practical thing, but a lot of times people look at it like, oh, it's all or nothing. I'm either living in this home or they're going to move me to, the assisted living. And in a community like ours in Reston, there are so many choices. So another term I want to introduce your audience to is aging in place. And I talk about aging in place. That's when you're going to stay put right in that house, okay? And there's lots of things, adaptations that can be done to make that happen. But I want to introduce you to a term that's more important in Reston, and that's called aging in community. So maybe it's not that 3-bedroom house that you're living in or the townhouse with all the stairs. You could, Reston has an amazing amount of apartments, condos, and they're all in these walkable neighborhoods. Whether it be Reston Town Center or Lake Ann, or now over there by the International Center, I forgot what they call that community. We are finding all of these great, convenient, walkable spaces where you can really enjoy life and not necessarily the maintenance that's associated with it.
Yeah. It's interesting. In Lake Ann now they're building, I guess that all that new construction with Fellowship House, right?
Yep. Oh, what an awesome project that's going to be. It's a multi, all incomes, and it's beautiful. And Reston benefits from the Lake Ann Fellowship House, which is being remodeled, and the Hunters Woods Fellowship House. And these are great resources for lower income, independent living seniors.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember my best friend, when he was going through this with his mom, he opted to retrofit the 1940 bungalow house in Arlington, right? Where, the dirt was now worth $800,000. They bought the property for $40,000, in 1945 or something like that. And it was really interesting because, he had a professional go in and say, hey, this is how you should retrofit, the home. And then she lived there for, her complete time. Right. And I thought that was really cool because it didn't disrupt the pattern, that she was used to.
Now, the challenge is most people, when they want to make those types of remodeling changes, they're in the car coming back from the hospital because they had a fall, and they're like, we've got to make the home more accessible. And another thing that that your audience should be aware of is that there's lots of resources out there. It's not stainless steel grab bars anymore. Remodeling for accessibility can be beautiful and safe, and it can increase your property's value. However, you got to do it before the time comes. Yeah. And, I'm constantly throwing my back out, and doing things like that. Living in a more accessible home makes sense no matter what age you are. Don't feel like it's just for people in wheelchairs.
Is it from all that canoeing?
Yeah. Paddleboarding. Yeah. Paddleboarding.
So I think I saw like on the website that you're like certified as canoeing or something like that.
Yeah, no, I've operated for the last 8 years Surf Reston, which is the paddleboard business here in Reston, and now I'm working with Reston Association to provide that. And then in the wintertime, I am an adaptive snowboard instructor at Liberty Mountain Resort, and I help people with disabilities enjoy snow sports in the winter. But to that point, that's why I throw my back out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's a lot, as I was exploring this further, there's a lot of people that can help in this transition. It sounds like there are real estate agents that specialize in this. There are construction companies that specialize in this. There are estate companies, like I saw Daniel Saunders, who's been on, Reston Digs, right? He was on your site, and I was like, oh yeah, so amazing, right? And so, yeah. what other professions do you find are really integral in this?
Okay. So I'm glad you brought this up, because the one thing to drill home to the audience is, you don't need to walk this road alone, is that there are just dozens of people out there that can be resourceful and helpful and help you achieve the dreams that you want to achieve. And I like to draw the comparison of a kid going to college, because that's positive. Like when somebody graduates from high school and they're off to college, we're like, the world is your oyster. This is the most exciting time in your life. And I have to say, 18-year-olds don't know anything. They haven't lived life. They haven't reflected on who they are, what they want to do, this, that.
I've got an 18-year-old, so that's why I'm laughing. I'm like,
oh, yeah. Me too. Trust me. A 60, 70, 80-year-old, you have lived a long life. You know who you are. You know what you want to be. And my thing is, make lists. Think about what you want, what you like, what you don't like, what have you. And then you can turn to the resources that we have in Positive Aging Sourcebook. And Rob, I know you've got a lot of resources. There's caring providers out there, and 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to pay them. You're going to get some free advice that's going to sort of help you get to the next step. And then you're going to initiate groups to work with you. I mentioned the aging life care managers for people that want to move and downsize. Okay. And again, don't think about downsizing like you got to do it overnight. Make this a year-long journey in terms of thinking about doing it. But one of the professions that I love to tell people about is called senior move managers. Probably the last time you moved, you did it all yourself and you're putting things in boxes. You don't even need to do that anymore. In fact, like one of the articles that we wrote a few years back, this woman hired a senior move manager. She was moving to either a condo or a senior living community. I forgot which one it was. The move manager figured out what was going to stay, what was going to go, what her new floor plan is. She went on a month-long cruise. She wasn't even there when people were moving her out of her house. And she went to her new community. Beds were made, mints on the pillows, and she hosted Thanksgiving there the following week.
That sounds like that. That's what I would want. I'm going to go away, and when I come back, I want it all done. Yeah. Right.
But elder law attorneys are another profession that are just absolutely amazing, that can help families and individuals navigate, a lot of challenging times. And then there's government and nonprofit organizations that are out there, like the Fairfax Area Agency on Aging. There's so many free resources that are out there. And in Reston, we have an organization that I helped co-found. It's called Reston for a Lifetime. And it's part of a nationwide movement called the Village Movement, where neighbors who want to age in place come together and support each other. And so there's just a lot more resources out there that most people realize.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, I'm hoping we're going to get this out so people do realize about all those resources.
One tool that's out there for people in Reston and people all over that I'm a big fan of is Nextdoor. Okay. Now, the reason I like Nextdoor, and look, I mean, I know there's, people get on there and chatter about a bunch of stuff, but Nextdoor has no sort of age stigma associated with it. It's a community of people that live in Reston. Mm-hmm. And if you look at some of the postings in Nextdoor, is that there's a lot of neighbors that want to help other people. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's a need help thing on there. Mm-hmm. And then when I, glaze through the comments that are on Nextdoor, I'd probably say 1 in 10 are related to elder care type concerns, people looking for a resource for an older neighbor or what have you. And so, like, I think in terms of a technology piece that can assist us in neighbors helping neighbors, Nextdoor is a pretty cool free resource that's out there.
I remember the question now. It sounds like this elder care manager. Is that right?
Yeah. Like aging life care manager.
Life care manager. They sound like the quarterback. Like, could you just be like, hey, this is, just set it up, right? They give you the playbook, right? And then do they execute the playbook for you as well? Or they can, or like, I guess
they can. That's optional. So some people hire an aging life care manager just to sort of what's the best thing for us to do with mom? And then maybe they keep on going along the journey. It's sort of like, okay, we're going to move mom into an assisted living. And Reston has some great assisted livings, Tall Oaks, Kensington, Hunters Woods at Trails Edge, Great Falls assisted living. And then maybe that's it. It's sort of like, okay, we got mom. Thank you so much. But a lot of times the aging life care manager stays on, and they're monitoring mom in the assisted living and making sure everything's okay. And the beauty to that is that they've seen it all happen. So, like, oftentimes probably a lot of your audience has had a parent in senior living, and you're sort of like, I don't think she's being taken care of that well. Well, just imagine what it would be like to have that quarterback in your corner that you could bounce the idea on. And it's sort of like, no, actually, mom is doing really well. Mm-hmm. We find she's just settling in or what have you. Or
they can give you perspective, because many times you just don't have perspective, context or perspective. What's the one thing that you wish? Sometimes I'm sure you run across people that you wish maybe you'd met them a little bit sooner in the process to help them. Like, what's the one mistake that people typically make in this process when they're trying to help mom and dad?
There's two paths here. From the older adult, which we're all older adults. We're all like, we're all aging. If you're living, you're aging. Okay. We don't use that term the right way. So the first thing that I would say to all of us is begin to sort of think about your future. And if you had healthcare concerns, or what are your dreams? Don't limit it, and talk with your friends, family, and loved ones. Don't make it a mystery to them. Have conversations, because I see that as one of the big problems is that if something happens to us, our family just begins making assumptions on what we wanted. And if you can write it down or share it, a lot of older adults, they make the decision to move to what we call life plan communities, senior living communities, because they don't want to be a burden on their children, and that's a wonderful gift, So from our perspective is communicate with your loved ones, your children, your family, your grandchildren. From the adult child perspective, try not to make too many assumptions if something happens and you are now in a caregiving role, and really try to look at things through your parents' field of vision in terms of what's best for them, not necessarily what's most convenient to me, but what's best for them. I will say, though, going back to Reston, is that if a loved one does need assistance, and the decision all around is, hey, let's move, mom's ready to move to a senior living community. I have found that if you can find a community that's close to your home, that you can be a part of that community, that's the best choice. And I try to draw the analogy to positive things. Think about your kids, and you don't just drop your kids off at the school and hope that they get a good education. You join the PTA, you become a part of that school community, and that makes it a better experience for your child. And I don't want to compare an older adult to a child, but what we've seen is when families sort of embrace the community that mom or dad is in, and they're there eating dinner, they're volunteering, they're playing their musical instruments, they're doing things like that, it makes it better for everybody.
Man, that is such great advice. My parents are approaching 80, and these are all things that are now heavy up in mind.
Well, and Rob, okay, I'm gonna listen. I don't necessarily practice what I preach. Okay, let's face that. And let me bring up one difficult challenge in most families. Like in my family, you didn't talk about money with your mom and dad. Okay, but I will tell you that's one of the biggest challenges as we kind of go through this process. Is that if someday, I need to manage and assist my mom or dad on sort of a caregiving situation, I don't know where their money is. I don't know how much they've got. And this can make it kind of challenging. And so what I say to families is, it's sort of like, I know it was the unwritten rule, don't talk about money with your children, but got news for you. We're all adults now. So we can have, we can have an open conversation on money so that if the day happens where you're unable or it's more difficult for you to manage, that your loved ones know, where to get these important documents and provide care.
For sure. I noticed that there was a new assisted living that was being built in Reston. I drove past it. I was getting my hair cut. It's right there by the barber shop on Sunrise Valley.
Yep, that's Kensington, and they've got their headquarters is actually here in Reston, but they offer assisted living and memory care. And then right down the street, we got another relatively new community, and that's Hunters Woods at Trails Edge, and that's independent living, assisted living, and memory care. I mentioned Hunters Woods Fellowship House, that's independent living, and they offer subsidies. Then Lake Ann, you've got Lake Ann Fellowship House, that's independent living, offers subsidies. Tall Oaks assisted living is assisted living and memory care. Thoreau Place at South Lakes is a condo, independent living condominium. So if you're interested in Thoreau Place, you talk to Rob. And let me tell you, you talk about a great location. I mean, you can walk right under the tunnel.
The shopping center is right there. First townhouse I ever bought was right there, right next to that community.
Thoreau Place. Yeah, I mean, what a great location. And it's, but again, there's no healthcare provided at a community like that. That's active adult. But I tell people, what's the most important thing to be close to? A grocery store. We go to grocery stores on a daily basis sometimes. So like when you're thinking about, maybe downsizing, looking over there at, if you're a big Trader Joe's fan, there's a couple of really nice apartment buildings over there where you could downsize, pop over to Reston Town Center, hit Trader Joe's, Harris Teeter, all that stuff. And then right on the border of Reston, we have Great Falls Assisted Living. That is a memory care community. Now, memory care is and Alzheimer's dementia is a devastating challenge that families go through. And one of the reasons that we've got this category of assisted living memory care is because somebody could be physically strong as an ox. They could run a marathon, but because they've got a cognitive issue with dementia or Alzheimer's, they need care. And if you've ever had to care for a loved one with cognitive issues, it can become very challenging doing that at home. And that's why many of the communities here in Reston offer memory care.
Offer memory care. Interesting. Steve, your physical publication and online? Is that
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep. It's positiveagingsourcebook.com. And if you go to the website, you can get a free copy and we'll mail it right to you. Rob, I'm more than happy to mail you some too, so that if your clients or your readers or listeners wanted to reach out, you could send them one.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're having this discussion, Steve, because it's when I'm at that stage when my parents are healthy, and this is the time that they'll be 79 this year, so they're healthy, they're active, but I'm starting to really think about, okay, what do we need to do? And also we have lots of clients. Like we're helping so many clients just downsize, right? And we're doing these downsizing seminars. So it's really good now that we have a resource for these downsizing, seminars. Anything that I haven't asked you that you think we should know about, right?
Yeah.
Regarding Positive Aging Sourcebook.
Yeah, you probably figured it out now. I could talk all day on these various topics and go down various rabbit holes, but honestly, like a lot of what I'm talking about is in here in Positive Aging Sourcebook, positiveaging.com. Our phone number, my email address is in the book. I love talking to people. I love brainstorming because every conversation I have, I learn something, and then I can help somebody else through that scenario. So just really appreciate the opportunity to get the word out there, and really looking forward to interacting with you and your audience over the years.
Yeah, this is great. We're all about building community at Reston Dig. So this is a community within the community. That's what I love about it. Steve, I have one question. My wife always loves me asking this question, right? And this has more to do with your entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
What would your older self, yourself today, right, tell your younger self, right?
Yeah, that I love that question, and I should have my answers sort of scripted, but I think I would say to my younger self is just relax. Nobody cares what you're doing. So just do what you want, be what you want, and try everything under the sun. I mean, I think action creates opportunity, and if I had to sort of look back at my younger self and sort of the things that make me sort of cringe are when I would have hesitated and said, "Oh, I'm not going to go to that party, or I'm not going to go to take that class, or I'm not going to join that club." Just do it. It's by not going, you're missing an opportunity. And so I wish I would have taken advantage of that in my younger years. I sort of feel like I've grown out of that, and now I have to sort of filter my priorities a little bit more. But that would be this is good. This is like a therapy session, Rob. I'm glad you.
It's great. The book that came to mind for me was Richard Branson's "Screw It, Just Do It." Right? It's hey, just do it. Right? Engage life, do it. And I love what you said. Nobody cares. That's very profound, because it is so true. People get hung up by judgment, like, oh, what would such and so, what would people think if I? And it's like, man, just do what you love. Just do it. Live life. Engage life. Right? And I always tell my team, body in motion stays in motion, right? So it's like this energy. You got to create this energy, because when you create energy, just things happen, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you slow that down, like things break, you fall in a slump, you fall in like your thinking goes bad. So it's like, just get out there and just do it, right?
Yeah. No, it's great. Great.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us at Reston Digs. I appreciate it, my friend. And I look forward to seeing you out in the community sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll get you on a paddleboard next.
That sounds great. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you.